We can be most effective when we are engaged in the political process, and there's no time like the present. One of our main goals is effective advocacy through active participation from you. Those who stand for nothing will fall for anything. Our efforts to keep you engaged and informed as to the importance of current events happening locally and abroad started 2 years ago. Our number one goal is to make a difference. We need you. Join us at the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass.
It's time to take back control of our society. Today's world requires an open and honest discussion about the current events. On the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass, our goal is to engage people from different walks of life into a healthy discussion, creating a positive outcome. When it comes to global events, tune in to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass on Monday nights at 7:30. We don't just listen to the news, we bring you the news. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. We are honored to have you as a guest tonight and want to thank each of you for your faithful support. Without further delay, allow me to introduce to you Mr. Baron Glass. Mr. Glass, take it away.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour tonight, Thursday, May the 12th, 2016. We're going to be joined at some point by Mr. Aaron Hopkins, who so graciously chose this topic, morality in America. Are we willing to change? But right now, Aaron is at a little awards program. So he should be joining us about 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. But Mr. Dave Lamont had basically talked about the general election along with the primary and some things of that nature. So what I want to do tonight is we're going to try to cover several different things that are going on, and then we'll get off into the subject matter. So tonight, morality in America. Are we willing to change, along with the presidential primary and general election? And we're going to throw in 1, 2, or 3 little tidbits, because it's obvious that this particular country that we are now living in, it appears that morality, union, and all of those other things no longer exist. If we look at tonight, you can check us out and our message, as always, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Tumblr, on Google+, on iTunes, on Spreaker, YouTube, and of course, you can go right here, right now, at www.thesmokingglasshour.com. Or if you simply want to participate in the conversation, you can dial 773-897-6398. Now, I know right now we are joined by Mr. Dave Lamont from Screens from the Center and Miss Nikki Bedrick from Las Vegas, Nevada. And as I stated, we will be joined by Mr. Aaron Hopkins, and I'm hoping that A.F. Riggins will call in, because we're talking about morality. And he's one of these ministers that participates and as well as a drum major for justice. So I'd like to get his point of view because Aaron has some specifics that he'd like to talk about, and we're going to join in with Aaron and try to discuss these things. Dave Lamont, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Dave. I know you've been busy, and we'll get right back to you. Nikki, how are you doing?
I'm fine, Baron. How are you? And good evening, Dave.
Good evening.
And I know Deb is out there as well. I know she's out there on the live link. I'm not sure if she's on the line. So if she is on the line, Deb, I'm going to say hello to you. Hello, Deb. Okay. Let's look at this particular incident right here. And Dave, Nikki, I know this is probably going to burn you up the same way I'm boiling. Let's look at this right here. The Secret Service said it would investigate Donald J. Trump's longtime butler over Facebook posts laced with vulgarities and epithets calling for the president to be killed. The racially tinged posts by the butler were unearthed by Mother Jones on Thursday and referred to Mr. Obama as a Kenyan fraud who should be hanged for treason. With the last breath I draw, I will help rid this America of the scum infested in its government, he wrote, saying that the president should be dragged from the White Mosque and hanged from the portico. Count me in. In a statement, now this is what bothers me, in a statement Thursday, the Secret Service said it was aware of this matter and would conduct the appropriate investigation. What the hell do they mean by conduct the appropriate investigation when they already have proof that this man said it? If this was an African American individual, anybody else saying something like this person would have been put in jail the very moment it was found. Dave, Lamont, Nikki, let's talk about this incident first. Dave, how are you feeling about that?
I'm a little, I might not be very popular with this, but basically when they say they're conducting an investigation, that's usually what they say in these instances. There are very few times that someone is directly arrested unless they are in the physical presence or vicinity of the president, and they have statements like that. So I think what they'll do is the same thing that they did with Ted Nugent and the thousands of other threats that they get daily, is they'll investigate it initially for a credibility check, if there's any validity in it and not just the normal rhetoric you get from against the president, then they probably won't carry it on any further. However, I will say these types of incidents do seem to be higher with President Obama versus any other president. I've seen lots of cases of threats, we got to hang him, that sort of thing. So, again, that's basically all I can think of is I'm a little pessimistic about the chances of this panning out to anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nikki, talk to us.
My first thought, I just read it a few minutes ago, my first thought was, you can be arrested going on an airline for joking that you're going to carry on a bomb. It's ludicrous. Second thing I thought, and you said if it were an African American, Barry, he'd be arrested. I think I think that's kind of backwards. I think it's because the president is an African American that he's saying it. I think also, I think it's heinous. I think it's disgusting. But there's also an underlying thing that is linked to Trump and Trump supporters. This man should be arrested. That's like open season for Trump supporters. And they're so vitriolically bigoted and prejudiced. I agree with Dave. Dave, probably nothing will come from it. I think it's heinous. I just think it's another racist, horrific attack. And the worst form, just of the worst form. The language is wicked and sinful. But I think that his link to Trump, not in any way accusing Trump to it, but, a Trump supporter reads that, and that's Trump's butler. And that's what I'm afraid of, I think that's what I'm more afraid of than anything else. I think it's just heinous.
Okay, Deb, I know that you're out there. I'm going to give you an opportunity to come in. Come on in, Deb. She indicated via the live chat line that she was out there. Again, my issue is from a black man perspective. I see Pastor Riggins, A.F. Riggins. Let me bring you in. Trump's butler talking about the hanging or whatever the case of the president. Talk to us, Pastor Riggins.
How you doing, Baron?
How you doing? Pastor, we're also joined by Nikki and Dave as well, and Aaron will be joining us with the morality about 820. Go ahead, Pastor.
I've been listening to y'all the whole time. I just hadn't press one yet. This deals with the morality of the United States. He might be going a different route with it, but my thing is the morality of the United States has always been hypocritical. Anytime they're saying God we trust, when we have slavery and take all the land from Native Americans, anytime you use religion as a way to say we're going to take the Native Americans' land and use religion to say that Anglos are better than African Americans all down through history, the morality is already messed up. It's hypocritical. Now, in this case, this man been above 30 years, Donald Trump. 2009, he tried to retire. Trump said, no, you can't retire. I'll make you my historian. You're a historian, it's a tower, you're going to give people tours. He is the historian, listen to this word, historian for Trump. The historian for Trump said the thing President Barack Obama from the White House. That's all that needs to be said about what Donald Trump is. See, you could put all sheen in his hair. You can dress him up and make him look right, but he is what he is. His daddy was a KKK, and this is what he is. This is what Donald Trump is. So the stuff he said slips out of his mouth because he can't control his mind, his mouth, because it's what he has hanging around him. That's why I'm afraid when he becomes president of the United States, because people like this will be everywhere in our town. Somebody hanging the black mayor, hanging the black councilman, hanging the black school board member, hanging the black, and that Trump gives them cover. That kind of stuff gives them cover for that. And that's what I'm concerned about.
So, Pastor, before I bring Deb, you're a history teacher, historian, so to speak, very rooted, very knowledgeable in politics. How do you, well, if one of your students were to come and ask you about this, and they would tell you, this is exactly why I don't trust the government. This is exactly why I don't trust the police. This is exactly why I feel like we have to walk with, always looking over our shoulder. How do you even begin to explain to them and try to give them some logic when what they're saying is actually true?
Well, along Dave's lines, President of the United States are always going to get threats. It's just the fact in this case, President Barack Obama has had higher incidence of threats than a lot of other people, and the fact that his threats are more related to racism versus somebody trying to get the limelight for killing the president or different with his policies. In other words, a lot of people had threats against George W. Bush. A lot of people had threats against Ronald Reagan. He got shot. The guy was mentally ill. And things like this. It's just that President Barack Obama's situation is very different, because a lot of the threats of racism or saying that he's a Kenyan, the Muslim, religious and racist thing. And then this specific threat right here is very important to us because it's coming from someone connected to someone who's running for president of the United States, who is Donald Trump. Now, they disavowed it right away. He disavowed it because it doesn't make him look good, but he hasn't disavowed it for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying. So there's a tone in American politics and the media and public is that I can sit up here and I can cuss, I can fool, do everything I want to for 30 years, as long as nobody don't know it's all right. As soon as somebody find out about it, I'm in the limelight, and all I got to do is give 3 seconds and says, forgive me, I'm sorry, then all supposed to be forgiven. Mm-hmm. This same guy, remember, called Hillary Clinton some words I can't pronounce. Say on this is cuss words by women that start with the C-U-N and the B-I-T word and some other words about Hillary Clinton. They got this all on his Facebook. Mm-hmm. September. So this guy is connected with Donald Trump. So while Donald Trump is saying, all this stuff about Bill Clinton and all this stuff, this is how he treats women, this is how he treats African people of color. Donald Trump treats people like this and gives cover for it. His butler, he serves him his food, he serves him his water, he puts him to bed. Come on, that's his butler. This is not somebody that's working in the grass back there in the backyard, 500 yards away from him or 5 miles away from him. This is right up in his bedroom, right up in his kitchen, serving him for 30 years. This is Donald Trump. This is what he does. Mm-hmm. I would tell the young people, we have to be wary of who we support, what we believe, and where we stand at, and get out and vote and get involved, because these kind of things are still alive today. like it was hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, we have on the books, we have what we call an assault and battery. The assault is, well, you have one which it's the actual threat you get arrested for. And then the other one is the actual action, which is the battery you get arrested for. An assault, battery. Here's the deal. If this man or any president is threatened in this particular manner, there should be something done about it. Doesn't matter what color he is, doesn't matter where they come from, doesn't matter who they go to bed with. Something should happen because we're living in perilous times and we need to make sure that we are proactive rather than reactive. Deb, let me bring you in so I can go to the next topic. Come on in, Deb.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you loud and clear. Deb, I can hear you loud and clear. I'm not sure if your phone.
There we go.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think so. I just have a little trouble with my phone tonight for some reason.
Okay, go ahead.
What I was going to say is, this is like the first I've heard about this, and I am in total shock. Although I shouldn't be, because we know that Donald Trump was the one that started the whole birther movement anyway. We know that he's been touching us when Barack Obama first ran for office the first year. I remember back then they were calling and I don't know that it was Trump specifically, but the term Antichrist was going around pretty thick back then. And I agree, it's a shame that just because we have an African American president in here, that he's having to put up with so much more. I think it just goes to show how well and alive racism really is still in this country, and that we need to fight harder to get rid of it.
Well, I mean, if you look at all of the incidents of the Secret Service breach, if you look at all the times that people have jumped the White House fence and got into the lawn and all this, that, and the other stuff, if you look at what people are saying on Facebook, if you look at what people are saying on Twitter, they're not saying it about Donald Trump. They're not saying about Hillary Clinton. They're not saying about Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. They're saying about the President of the United States. So my thing again is I'm tired of people talking about united we stand, divided we fall when there's an incident, but when there's no incident, everybody's out there doing whatever it is that they want to do, saying what they want to say. We're not united. We're more divided than anything. So when you look at all of this stuff, it really burns. But let me move to the next one. Pastor Riggins, I know this is going to make you just probably blow the lid. Let's look at this. Now, look at the text of it. I am honored and humbled to announce the sale of an American firearm icon, read by George Zimmerman, which he tried today to auction off a sale or whatever the case may be, the gun that was responsible for shooting Trayvon Martin. Talk to me, A.F. Riggins.
Yes, sir. I woke up this morning and started my wife with this one. First morning, and I was fired up. Yes, sir, because this is what he said. I'll stop the gun, and I'm going to give the money to fight against Black Lives Matter and to support the Donald Trump candidacy. That's the rest of that. I'm going to take the money and give it to anybody to fight against Black Lives Matter and give the rest of the money to Donald Trump candidacy. See that, and with his shirt off, he had his shirt off, with taking a selfie. Somebody going to sell his gun and he killed Trayvon Martin with. A young African-American male who was trying to talk to his girlfriend on the phone, or his friend, it wasn't his girlfriend, but his friend on the phone, eating Skittles and a soda pop, lost in the neighborhood because he was over at his stepmother's house, and killed this man, and got away with it. By lying, by standing your ground trying to play Bonnie fight, racist, he's had about 3 or 4 instances, and he said, I'm going to take the money from this gun, from killing this young man, and use the money to go against Black Lives Matter and Donald Trump. Now, let me tell you something. If all things equal, meet me in Texas and see what I do to you with the gun. Because I'm on my side. We can have old Louis Lamore, J.T. Harden, OK Corral shootout. Let's see what happens. But anyway, I digress.
Okay. Riggins, only thing I'm doing is pointing out things that the media. Okay, I'm gonna bring it back to Dave Lamont. Dave Lamont, let's talk about George Zimmerman for a moment.
Well, I consider him a waste of skin, to be honest. But I'm going to say something that's not going to sound incredibly popular. He wasn't convicted, unfortunately, even though I think the evidence against him should have warranted a conviction.
Mm-hmm.
So he is technically within legal rights to do what he is doing. However, this shows basically what you're talking about in the topic we're going to be discussing later on.
Mm-hmm.
Is it morally right to do something like this? And the clear-cut answer is absolutely not. Something being legal and something being right to do are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
This is a classic example of this. This is a great example of it. So George Zimmerman, if he had any sense in his head, and that's the thing, he does.
Dave Lamont, you make an excellent point.
Please.
You make an excellent point, Dave. I brought this up because go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
It's shameful. I think it's disgusting that we look. This is the first time this year has been just one story after another like this, with the candidacy of Trump all the way through to these kinds of antics.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me ashamed to be here.
Mm-hmm.
I've never felt so disgusted with my country. At least when we had, and again, this is going to be sensitive, but at least when we had segregation and things like that, it was out in the open. This undercurrent that we have now, this deceptive nonsense. I have people who talk to me who say that racism doesn't exist, that things like what you say about Black Lives Matter and such is what's causing racism. And it's disgusting because it's not out in the open. It's this underlying thing, and it's only people like us who talk about this stuff.
I'll tell you, Dave Lamont, let me make sure you understand you never have to apologize about what it is you're saying, because we know when you talk, you're talking with sensitivity, you're talking with facts, and you're trying to bring out points that need to be relevant. So we have no issue with that. The only thing, the reason why I brought this up is this. A large portion of white America, O.J. Simpson may have been guilty, but he was found innocent. People vilified him, they still vilify him, and they still say this, that, doesn't. So all I'm saying is this. I try to point it out both ways. Hey, look, I'm tired of the one-sided thing, Dave. I'm like you. I'm not subscribing to anything that we're talking about when it talks about unity, justice, equality, and all, because it's not so. It's not the truth. Dave Lamont, you are exactly right. Some things existed back in the 60s, and we knew that it existed. Now it's all in the closet, and now it's coming out by the main man, Donald Trump. Nikki, George Zimmerman, talk to us.
I'm outraged. I'm boiling. Baron, we have a systematic criminal justice system that discriminates, that is so prejudiced against Black America. We have this racism coming from the top down. We talk about George Zimmerman. It's almost, I keep thinking about the young boy like Quan Williams that was McDonald that was shot 16 times. 16 times. And it was only because the tape was released. It was held for 400 days. That boy was executed. It was held for 400 days. The police officer, the first one in Chicago, indicted of murder. Maybe about 3 hours before the tape was released. It was held for 400 days. Well, we have a system that allows 30 years for a young black boy who was smoking some marijuana so that his life is destroyed. That when we allow our police to gun down with impunity black men in the street and are never charged, what the hell? What does that tell the citizens? What does that tell a man who can shoot a young black boy? I am going to get away with it. They all get away with it. It's the system is rotten, from the top to the bottom. And I think what Pastor said about Trump, this is a man, this butler served this man for 30 years. Wipe his ass. Did I say that? Sorry. He's historian. And he's not talking about shooting President Obama. He's talking about lynching him. That's the language.
Mm-hmm.
That's the language. You know, but when at every level of government it's allowed, you know, and Trump has given now the citizen who might have held it under wraps a little bit, full license to go, you know, it's open season. And that's what's happening.
Well, I'll tell you, Nikki, I agree everything you said. I agree with Dave Lamont. I know that, you know, Dave's reason for saying that, I know exactly, and I just posted the main reason I'm bringing this up is because we remember, our goal is to try to make a difference. And we make a difference when we are informative and try to allow other people to realize and understand what mainstream media is not going to put out there. I wouldn't care less about George Zimmerman. However, since George Zimmerman is out there and he's done some things that I know and I feel that were wrong, you know, that's only the reason why we're discussing this. I'm going to bring Deb in. Deb, come on in. George Zimmerman, what do you think?
Well, again, that's another one that I was just floored when I heard that this morning, that he was putting that gun up for sale.
It's like he's bragging, like he's rubbing it in your face.
It is like he's bragging. It's like he got away with it, and he's letting everybody know it. And then the other part of it, too, is how many people are going to actually be bidding on this, that's going to be bidding on this item? And these are people in the same mindset. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, I'm just surprised how much of it is still out there and how often I see it. I agree with you totally, Dave, is that it's just well hidden now, and Trump has just brought it out. The question is, how do we attack it? You know, how do we go about when it's so well hidden? How do you fight it? I mean, you can't even have a discussion about it if they're not willing to bring it out.
Right.
Admit.
Exactly. And again, Deb, that's the only reason I brought it out. I know I've already touched with Riggin, but Dave Lamont, here's where we're going to kick in, and I know I want to make sure that I hear from you and Pastor Riggins. Not that I don't want to hear from the other one, but I know that you guys love this. And Deb, you probably are out there, and I know Nikki probably as well. We know today was that magical day, that Thursday. That Thursday, May the 12th of 2016, that supposedly the strongest number 3 point man in this country, the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, was supposedly had met with the presumptive nominee, Donald Trump. Dave Lamont, take us into the minds of what you think went on in this particular meeting, and what are some of the results that you've been able to hear, if any, about how the meeting went? Was there any type of compromise? Is Ryan now supporting him? And if so, how weak does that make Ryan feel? I'm going to bring in Dave Lamont, then I'm going to go to Pastor Riggins, and then I'm going to come back to Nick and Deb, and then by then Aaron Hopkins should be in, and we'll be ready to go off until the morality standpoint. Are we willing to change? Dave Lamont.
So, here's where you're going to see magic tricks coming. The first thing is, remember all those Republicans who said they could not support him?
Uh-huh.
Well, you're going to start to see them slowly either backing away or changing their mind completely after, quote, coming to terms with him or seeing his vision. This is an example of this. The other thing is, Donald Trump is rebranding himself as the next Ronald Reagan. He is also the first Republican candidate since Ronald Reagan who I think could be very successful in taking up that mantle, because he's the pretend outsider, just like Cowboy Reagan was, and he is doing all of the same policies. He's having all of the same kinds of shifts in his philosophy to line up with the perceived notion of what Reaganism is. He's even pulled out some of Reagan's own old economic people, not Laffer personally, but someone else, I forget his name at the moment, who has rescored his tax plan to make it look like, to people who are suckered by the Republican mantra into thinking that instead of a $10 trillion gap, that we're going to have some sort of surplus as a result of this. Paul Ryan's actions are just that. Republicans do, and I said this on the last couple of shows, I think, Republicans fall in line.
Yeah.
Trump is their nominee, barring any kind of weird miracle that they can get out of. So Republicans are trying to figure out a way to align themselves with their leader because that's what they do.
So Dave Lamont, let me ask you this. Are they in fact selling their souls to the devil?
Well, two things are going to happen. Donald Trump is going to have to tone down his rhetoric to a degree. He is going to become more of a conservative Republican candidate. But the people, the establishment people, are also going to have to compromise and bring Donald Trump, or bring their philosophy closer to Donald Trump. So that you've got a little of a two-way street going. They're going to meet in the middle, but ultimately, no matter what, they're going to fall in line because that's what they do. It's just like I said, everybody's going to start endorsing Trump sooner or later here.
Well, I'll tell you, Dave, if they're going to start doing that, then I have absolutely no respect for that party or the people that represent that party. I think, a lot of things should have happened. Let me ask you this, then we'll move on down because I know Aaron is in now. Dave, let me ask you this. So do you feel that Trump will be as successful or more successful than Reagan when it comes to crossing over and getting those Reagan Democrats?
Well, a poll in West Virginia, and mind you, this is West Virginia only, said that a third of Democrats there are going to vote for Trump over Hillary. I don't think that's going to translate everywhere. I have to have some sort of hope that there is going to be some national sanity that comes through at the last minute here. But Donald Trump is in a great position to become president, running against someone like Clinton, because he's going to run to the left of Clinton on several things, and he's going to run to the right of Clinton on the other. That's going to appeal to the independent voters. They're not indecisive, they're independent. They vote Republican or Democrat based on their ideology, and they're consistent about it. And those kinds of people are going to find someone like Trump, if he doesn't come off as too establishment, a very attractive notion, like when Ross Perot on one issue got 20% of the vote. So we've got to be careful. Trump is in a very dangerous position to being the next president, and we have to really work hard to stop it.
Well, I'll tell you, Dave, that has me concerned, because I would have figured that, like some of us Democrats are not caving into Hillary, I would have expected other party to do the same. But it appears that they are more for party than principle, and that's why I call them out as being hypocrites. I've called them out as being something else beyond hypocrites. What I'm going to do is this, because we're looking at about 8:35. If anybody want to talk about the Paul Ryan and Trump meeting, I'm going to let you do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you do it when I give you the opportunity. Aaron Hopkins is in tonight. We're talking about morality in America. Are we willing to change? Aaron, this touched you in some kind of way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm going to go ahead and bring you in, and we can create the dialogue so we all can get points of views out. Aaron Hopkins.
Yes, sir. Very glad. Good evening.
Good evening.
I apologize. Can you hear me pretty good?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Well, I've spoken to Darren about how this question, or the fact that really nobody's asking the question about, the morality of this country. And it seems that it's a missing element in most of the discussion that we have, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's other areas where it just, for whatever reason, it gets skipped over. And I think what brought it to my attention personally is when we had Mr. Edwin Robinson on a couple of weeks ago,
and he made some statements that were they're undeniable, but it just bothered me in a way that I felt like it's something that we need to focus on. And the reason I say that is just every day in social media and in regular news, we see things that it just points to if we don't make a change, and this is a conscious change, it's an individual change, it's a national and a worldwide change. A lot of the efforts and some of the things that we're focusing on now will be for naught. And I want to come at an angle or come from an angle that just says there's some basic principles that I think we don't really pay enough attention to. For instance, I think, man, we just read recently some statements that were made about President Obama. So it's kind of funny, but at the same time it's sad because you and I both know if certain things were said and certain things have been said by various in this country that are deemed outside or across the line, people are dead as such. So we are put on one side of the court. People need to be able to get away with things. Should be not even a question of moral conduct, regardless to race, creed, color, gender, but we see that that's not the case. We see that there's always a privileged few that are able to basically get away with whatever they want to get away with.
Right.
So, man, when we talk about this subject, and I gave some information, I don't know if you were able to read it or not, just to define it, because maybe sometimes we say words and we make, but we don't. Sometimes I think we lose the meaning of what a lot of these things are supposed to mean, not based on our own opinions sometimes, but the morality issue for me is very important for more than one reason. As a head of a household, children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, things of that nature around you, you want to be able to guide people under your influence in a way that they can be successful, not necessarily for gratification or self-gratification or notoriety or things of that nature, but our foundation has to be, we got to revisit this thing and look at, are we really trying to be what's considered role models, or we're trying to be just people who should and can be respected? And maybe it's something I want to sound like it's not a personal thing, but I can't lie and say it's not. I'm driven to see us do better and at least take a little more time and attention to focus on. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, some of the discussions we're having, like some of these things wouldn't even exist. I think if we really took the subject a little more serious. Morality, I mean, that us feel like we're the reason, or part of the reason why the Donald Trumps of the world even have an effect in American politics. And just nobody has to answer out loud. Just something to think about. And I think we were on the other night, the gentleman posed a very good point, and our side of the coin was pretty much the same. Taking a stance and watching things that we know to be wrong, waiting for somebody else to react, is normally how we get us in trouble. Okay,
so Aaron, I'm hearing you say that, and we know that morality, basically, we're going to break it down as much as we can. Morality simply means that the principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong or good or bad behavior. And then when we look at change, we look at make or become better. So if we look at morality in the country and making a change, specifically relate that to the presidential election and some other things, I'm going to bring everybody else in.
Sure. Well, first of all, the disenfranchised voter, he or she most of the time, it's an effort to get the average American person to muster up strength and the I guess just put in the effort to even vote for any candidate confidential based on candidates to represent them. And I say that recently, there was an election here, level in a city, probably close to 60 or 70,000 people. 6 people that people did not vote.
Mm-hmm.
So if that doesn't say something is fundamentally wrong, then then we need to all take a look in the mirror about what is it really. So in terms of the presidency or the candidate, it feels crystal clear who was a candidate seems in a position of decent. This is Aaron Hopkins talking. I'm not forcing my thoughts or opinions on anybody, but I'm just talking about the person being consistent on the issues that they're for, not wavering, not going direction because money or power was forced in a direction. That's a person that you can put trust in. Doesn't mean that they're perfect, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to accomplish everything that we would like to see accomplished. So, with that being said, when we look at the candidates that we have running for the presidency, I feel that the harder point comes to, stand morality. So that includes the foreign policy where I think it was Brian the other night and made the statement of how long presidents, whether we agree with them or disagree with them, do things on behalf of the American citizens where the American citizens don't hold the purpose. You can't really put that on the candidate so much. That's the question for us to ask ourselves: how long should allow on and just sit back and complain when it's too late?
I'll tell you, Aaron, I know that you're moving and you're in and out, and I'm hoping that most were able to get exactly what you're saying. I'm going to bring, I'm going to give you a little bit more time to get from point A to point B. I'm going to bring in Nikki, Morality in America, Are We Willing to Change? I'm going to take it over to Dave Lamont, then I bring Deb in. Because like I said, I want this to be discussed because a lot of us have our strong feelings, but at the end of the day, we all know what's right, we all know what's wrong, and we all know that there needs to be a change. So I think it's a very good discussion. I'll start with you, Nick, and then I go to Dave, then I go to Deb. Nikki Bedrick.
Unfortunately, Aaron was coming in and out on me, so I didn't catch a good deal of it. Really make comments, and plus I hated missing it. In the Catholic Church, there's a doctrine, there's a moral theology teaching, and it's called an informed conscience. And you have to work on an informed conscience. And when you attempt that work, you really have to suspend beliefs. You have to recognize that you're going into opinions, beliefs, and you have to open your mind to have your conscience informed. Okay? And it's work. It's work. You cannot. It's the work of the mind and the heart, and you cannot legislate it. It's a decision someone makes. I read Aaron's post on morality. It was beautiful. And C.S. Lewis was quoted often. C.S. Lewis was a British Christian theologian, and morality was huge. It was going back to the teachings of Christ. It was morality, and right from wrong. And morality means that we adhere to a set of principles, a conduct of behavior. Terms good to make us good citizens, a good society, so that we get along with each other. All of these things. He was one of these men that could really bring it down real simple. Okay, and there had to be some objective truth. if my idea of conscience and my idea of morality is because it feels good, I get to do it. Okay? Then if I am my only measure of what's good and right and what's true and what's not, I'm going to act according to myself. Okay? And what C.S. Lewis used to talk about is subjective truth, the law of God. The law of God. Okay? And that's what we had to strive for. It cannot be legislated. When I look at America and I look at, immoral, the opposite of moral means wickedness, sinfulness. And then there's a place in the middle called amoral, the amoral man who really doesn't care, who doesn't care about right and wrong. And I think that's one of the symptoms that is America today. They do not care that there are 20 million starving children. They do not care that there's a population of black men incarcerated. They do not care. And so I think the problem in America today is amorality. If it doesn't affect me, I don't care. I don't have to be a good Samaritan. I can say I can call myself Christian. I can say that I love God. I can say I follow the teachings of Christ. But where is it? Whatever you do to me, you do to the least. Whatever you do to the least of them, you do to me. I mean, that is the one of the crux teachings. And so I think the problem in America today is no morality. I think it's amorality. We watch suffering with indifference. We watch these things. I'm just talking about earlier with the shootings or we're watching it with an indifference. And I don't know how we get to that place of amorality to morality. And that place of informed conscience. This is wrong because it's simply wrong. Mm-hmm. I think honestly, Byron, I think when I think amorality in regard to minorities, I think it started at the very foundations of this country. I think when blacks were bought from Africa and used as chattel and owned by whites, the amorality started right there. Mm. And that wickedness, that immoral behavior has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. It's a norm. It's become a norm. Mm-hmm. When we say 20 million children are hungry, I haven't looked at the percentage. It's going to be high. They're going to be black children. It's bred in, and there's hope, and there's many things happening. I understand that, but it's part of, if you will, the immoral fiber of the country, not the moral fiber of the country, the immoral fiber of the country.
Well, Deb, come on in, and we're talking about morality in America. Are we willing to change? How do you view this question that Aaron so eloquently posed, and how can we relate this to the presidential election along with what has been going on for the last probably 40, 50 years, if not longer? Deb?
Well, for one thing, I think as a people as a whole, we just, like us here in this discussion, we're just going to have to continue to lead by example. Nikki's right. There's so much immorality out there, and it does seem to be passed along. And I don't think it has to do basically with religion or non-religion. I've raised my daughter kind of outside of the church because I've seen so much ugliness inside so many of the churches. And I taught her that everything that we do, everything that we send out into the universe comes back to us, and it also has consequences out there, and that we have to be aware of those consequences. And I think that that's what people are missing nowadays. They're not taking time to watch what their actions are, the residue that it's leaving on people. People just don't understand that anymore. And I don't understand why people aren't teaching this. I mean, this is something that I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, and my family followed the church, but they also followed this belief that, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But they made it real for us kids. They made us understand and look, when you do this, this is what happens, and this is how it reacts. And we've got to reach young people on that level. They're not internalizing it anymore. They're not internalizing those feelings of compassion anymore. Again, I think it's like Nikki said, it's become such a me. And now we have leaders out there that's saying, yeah, that's okay. They're saying, you just keep doing that and being like that, and it's okay, because we're going to back you, and we're going to take care of you, and we're going to go to the White House, and we're going to make everybody else like that too. And it's a crying shame. This is the most important presidential election I have seen in my lifetime.
Well,
important.
I'll tell you, Dad, we just got a message that reads, it's a shame that the world has become numb to the suffering of others. Is that due in part to mainstream media and what our children and families are exposed to? It's one thing to push crowd and completely another to tell a truthful story. Dave Lamont, let's talk about this morality. How do you see it regarding the 2016 presidential election, along with anything else that it can be applicable to within the last 40 or 50 years that results in the negative morality as it seems in 2016?
Sorry, my brain just...
That's okay. That's okay, Dave. Do you want me to come back to you?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Aaron Hopkins, I know you're still out there. Talk to me, Aaron.
Yes, sir. Baron, it went exactly in the direction that I hoped it would go in. And when Nikki started talking, my thought process when I was reading earlier, what I was reading, Nikki hit almost every point, and then Deb followed up with the one thing I think is what we use to excuse themselves from the moral question, which is consequence. And the thing about it to me is people want to do what they want to do, but they want to get around the consequences of those actions. So, I remember, like Nikki was saying, I remember the time as a young person where people would tell you no in a way to help you understand why they're telling you no. It's one thing to just say, don't do this, or don't do that. But it's that explanation that builds a foundation on us understanding the difference between right and wrong, as opposed to, because one of the things that we hear a lot in our society now is people saying they don't feel like they should or can be judged by their peers. And I've always said about that, it's not a judgment, it's a pointing out in a behavioral flaw that we all share, but at the same time, it's better to have it pointed out and given the chance to correct it before actual judgment does appear. So we really need to look at how we treat or don't take serious consequences of our own actions, because we're very good at pointing out how somebody else should be held accountable for their actions. So we saw earlier, Baron, that article I sent you about the young ladies who are supposed to be tried as adults. There's some very good arguments on both sides of that fence of whether these young ladies should be tried as adults or not, because somebody did lose their life. However, as a parent, there's times where I felt like my son could be in a situation that I would be held responsible for because he was a minor at the time. So, again, are we teaching consequence, or are we just teaching people, or are we lacking in teaching people what the real consequences for actions entail?
Right, but
it has a lot of looking inward to do.
Right. Now, Aaron, let me ask you this, and I'm going to go back to Dave. My issue is if mainstream media is the driving force in what people see, 90% or the 90% of mainstream media and all this, that, and other. If they are the driving force and continue to see the negative, because this ain't just started. This has been going on 40, 50, 60, some odd years. So, I mean, obviously, when we talk about the change, which means make or become different, how do we make this thing to become different? Because we're doing the best we can. I mean, you're fighting up against, like, David versus Goliath. It can happen. I'm gonna let you finish. Then I'm gonna go to Dave. Let him think about it. But how do we make this change if we're talking about becoming different than what we are, and knowing that the principles concerning the distinction between right or wrong or bad behavior, that's all we see from the Republican Party is bad behavior, especially Donald Trump.
Well, Baron, the person that made the statement about the numbness, I think it starts there. If we're not conscious enough to pay attention to our own actions, then what somebody does outside of us, really, it doesn't even have a chance to really be gauged properly. So the whole definition of morality, to me, when I think about it, I'm looking at where do I fit in that, not where somebody else fits in it. So to me, it's that self-accusing spirit that, like you said earlier, we know right from wrong. I think from a much younger age than people want to give credit. But see, we're always given the pass. We're given that it's okay, just don't do it again. Or we're given that what I call passive resistance. And the passive resistance says that the alternative to doing it the right way is a lesser or less strenuous way or strict way of doing something that is totally against what's right.
Okay.
So it's like you get a couple of free passes to do it wrong, and you've done it wrong so many times, it's hard to bring your actions back into.
Okay, Aaron, I heard you say earlier that morality is a reflection of the person who is doing the leading, or those who are out there that have the opportunity to make an impact. Let's take the pulpit, for example, which is where morality is supposed to be at its highest level. Okay, and Pastor Riggins in, and I'm gonna get him touched. So I'm not specifically talking about anyone. I'm talking about reality. I'm talking about what we see, what we hear, and what we know. So it appears that when we look at the cornerstone of values and beliefs, that certain things are there, and I know Dave is on the opposite side, but I know he still can come in and talk from the standpoint without even using the aspect of God, religion, the Bible, or whatever. But for my purposes, I am. But yeah, so when you look at this, and Nikki always talks about this moral compass. If you look at those who are supposed to be leading, okay, those who are supposed to be trenched in these principles concerning distinction between right or wrong or good or bad behavior. And every time you turn around, those are the main ones, like Donald Trump, like some of these other people, like some of these people who want jets and all this for $80-something million. How do you break that when, and this ain't, Donald Trump didn't just start to exist 1 year ago. Donald Trump existed right before our eyes, and as a result of us seeing it and not acting on it, now we deal with the consequences. Tell me, how do we change this thing to become different or make it different? Otherwise, we're going to be like the insane term. You keep doing what you've always done, you're going to always get what you've always gotten. Talk to me, Aaron.
Right. Well, I like to go back to the millennials in this instance, because their lack of fear, their lack of accepting the excuses that we've given the generation ahead of them for a lot of the compromises that we and our forefathers made in terms of things that would have put us as a country, us as various communities, us as men and women, would put us in a much stronger moral position right now. But because we've compromised, and these millennials see the effects of our compromise, and are not willing to go down that same road. I think it's a very critical time in understanding what we're looking at. So I make this analogy quite often because I believe sometimes, you and I, Baron, are kind of on the same page when it comes to we're a little more scripturally based on some things, and I don't push that on anybody.
Right.
In other words, the people during the time of Moses, those that were unwilling to go with him, basically were left to walk alone in the wilderness. And it was the children who were able to walk out and benefit just based on them being prepared for that time, and the others just refusing to change. So it's the refusal to change that I believe, like Nikki said, and Deb, it's the me, I syndrome that makes somebody feel like, well, it's not affecting me personally, but why should I change? And that is the part, I think, that the person that sent the message, that's the numbness. So you have the consciousness that basically is inactive, that isn't even susceptible to being corrected or even being pointed out of their own personal conduct. So to me, the best message at this point in time is for us all to look inward and always put ourselves in a position to correct ourselves first, so that we don't, so that we're not guilty of becoming self-righteous, where we always only want to point out somebody else's fault.
Right. Dave Lamont, I'm going to bring you in because I know that you have an interesting perspective, as always, and I'm saying this beforehand because I know that you're going to be able to bring something in that creates even a greater conversation than what we have now. Dave Lamont.
Yes, thank you. So it's because I am the kind of person, being an atheist, I think that morality is actually subjective rather than objective. So from my point of view, we are in a more dangerous situation than I think you even perceive. Because ever since the 80s, ever since Reaganism and this me first, this Reaganism, Ayn Rand kind of selfishness, this is what created this me first generation. This is what is going to elect someone like Donald Trump. People will respond to this kind of morality because it's being shifted in that direction. And in my perspective, morality can be shifted like that, and that's a dangerous thing. We need to get out there and try and talk to people. I mean, it doesn't matter to me if you use scripture, if you use logic, if you use reason, any of these things to instill people with a moral compass that points them in a direction to say that we're a community and we need to start acting like a community. And I see the dangers of this selfishness that is bringing people like Trump into the limelight, for instance.
Dave, let me ask you this. Let's kind of switch gears. I'm going to take it to you, then I'm going to go to Nikki, and then I'll pass to Riggins. Let me take the Riggins first. Dave, a Trump presidency and factoring in this term morality in America, how do you see us 4 years from now with a Trump presidency? I know that's hard, but I mean, just based on what we see now.
I'm not a big fan of the idea of looking at people who are in sports, entertainers, or even politicians as being some sort of moral guide or anything like that. But unfortunately, I have to acknowledge the reality that most people do see them this way. And we're going to see, if we have a President Trump, we're going to see taking that road down to more and more selfishness, more Ayn Randian, more vulture capitalism, more of this kind of me-first attitude in a very unhealthy way. And I fear that more than just about anything else because, of course, like I said, I do see morality as something that can shift with opinion. And I look back at history and I see things, there was a time we thought slavery was right. We found biblical justifications for it. We found moral justifications for it outside of the Bible. But as time went on, certain people who looked in these directions saw the light. They saw what was going on. They saw it was wrong, and they slowly convinced people to change that direction, to change their compass and move away from that. I fear that we've spent the last 160 years trying to move away from that kind of a behavior right back into it again with this sort of philosophy that someone like Trump is going to bring to the pulpit, the stuff.
Right. Okay. Very, very well said, Dave. A.F. Riggins, we're talking morality in America. You've been from two different unique sides, being in the classroom as a historian and being in the pulpit as a man of God. And like I said, we always respect everybody's beliefs, their opinions, their values, or whatever, because that's what it's about here, making a difference. A.F. Riggins, talk to me about this thing called morality, and what do you see in the next 4 years regarding or relating to a Trump presidency when we talk about the principles of this country versus Trump trying to change this into what he feels is right versus what we all know is right. A.F. Riggins.
Yes, sir. Well, I believe Trump is exposing the principles of this country.
He's exposing what now?
The principles of this country.
Okay.
My background is going to go to the Bible, and it says the love of money is the root of all evil.
Mm-hmm.
The love of money is the root of all evil. So to go to slavery, why did slavery exist? It was profiting the southern cotton planters so they could make a lot of money. And so they messed it up with all the stuff about, Anglos are better than African Americans. But the whole thing was about, they fought the Civil War was over that, was the fact that you're going to lose our way of life, you're going to lose all the money to be this free labor. Let's fast forward. Why do we fight the war in Iraq? Because the love of money is the root of all evil. Dick Cheney said, let's go get the oil. Let's go all the way down. Anything. Why was John F. Kennedy, even as the Democratic president, was a lot of stuff that was around him that got him in trouble, or that ended up being the ultimate demise, because his daddy was connected with the mob and all this stuff that had to do with crooked politics and love money was all even. So Donald Trump was able to drive in front of us, and everybody said, "Look at Trump! Look at Trump! Look at Trump! Sell his name, Trump! Sell his name all over the place. He's a successful man." So now folks say, "Look, we buy into this ideal of capitalism. Instead of liberty, is what we do, and freedom and rights and morality, but it's always been the love of money." I believe that even out of Revelation, and even though some people can debate this with me, the mark of the beast is related to the Almighty's hour. And so when you think about all this, morality is wrapped up in immorality in the United States. Why does hip-hop and gangster rap and all this stuff sell to our people? Because why? They make money off of this, selling this. Why was the drug war in the community? Because money is made out of that. You see what I'm saying? So why do we sell $200 pair of Jordans to somebody on food stamps? Because the love of money is the root of all evil. And so Trump is exposing that, because everybody's been drunk on that stuff, and then boom, he shows up, the ultimate prize of it. Mm-hmm. And we say, wait a minute, look what Trump's saying, look what Trump, but he's a smart businessman, and all the money he made, and we don't even know if he really made the money.
Uh-huh.
See his tax return, but he represents that ideal. And so that's why morality is lost. It's lost in the fact that we have sold our soul, wanting to think the American dream is to be somebody, have something. So the man in the pulpit says, "Give me a $65 million jet." The love of money is the root of all evil.
Uh-huh.
The man that don't have a $65 million jet, but he sits up in the pulpit every Sunday and say, "Look, make sure my bills are paid. Make sure I have a big, nice car to ride. Make sure I'm doing what I need to do, but all of y'all might be still poor, but God gonna bless y'all for giving to me." The love of money is the root of all evil. That's what immorality is.
Mm-hmm. It's about 10 minutes after 9. The lines are wide open, so if there's anybody out there who want to engage in the conversation, they may do so. I'll pause for a minute. Otherwise, we're going to continue the conversation. I'm going to take it to Nick. I'm going to pause for one brief minute. Who have any call that would like to have a comment? There being none, Nikki, morality, talk to us. I'm not sure if we dropped Nikki or not. Aaron Hopkins, come on in.
No, I'm here, Baron.
Okay, go ahead.
I had out on mute.
Okay.
I said I was so engaged with what Pastor Riggins was saying, because I so wholeheartedly agree. You know, I think that, and I think Trump is just the manifestation of it. The biggest the words that people use on social media, the biggest admirable quality they find in Trump is that he's a successful businessman. And I think in our country today, success is measured. You are somehow a better person if you have money. I think it's how we measure. I think it's how we've always measured it. There's no country that we go into as a foreign nation that we're not in there self-serving, whether it's oil in the Middle East. You know, I always make this comparison. Idi Amin was eating people in Africa. We didn't go into Uganda because they had nothing we wanted. They had nothing we wanted. And America is like this big, avaricious, greedy nation. You know, there was a time that the law was revered. You know, the law was a noble thing, or a time that teachers were revered. These were noble professions. Today, you know, you think of the law, it's about money. Doctors, you think about, the vocation to be a doctor, to heal people. Today, it's about the money. Everything is about the money. Every show that we see on television, these reality shows, there's no morality in them. It's me. You know, I want to be the biggest, the fastest, the quickest, and I want the best. And I think Pastor Riggins is absolutely right, that Trump is the manifestation of it.
Right.
Trump is he's the manifestation of what is happening in the country. Mm-hmm. And it's astounding. It's astounding in a way to see how much and how many people are right on that bandwagon. But this is what it is. The root of money is the source of all evil. There was a time when I think it was Calhoun in the South, when slavery was abolished, called the black. It was that was the wealth of the country. How dare you do that? The wealth of those slaves was bigger than the cotton. It was bigger than the tobacco. You know, and it's just you know there's this rape and pillage that goes on, and you know there is no conscience. There's no conscience attached to it. You know, talk about the hungry children. How can we watch that? How can we watch mass incarceration? How can we say that 500,000 Iraqis killed was collateral damage? I mean, how do we say that? I think Aaron's absolutely right in the sense, how do we stop? There's got to be a moral outrage. One of the most beautiful things about Dr. King was his moral courage. He was prepared to die for it. And he did. You know, that's into this moral courage to stand up and say, no, it's wrong. And I think that's what's Black Lives Matter, Color Will Change. These young organizations are standing up and saying, no, it's wrong. You know, and I think therein lies our hope. Therein truly lies our hope.
Mm-hmm. A.F. Riggins.
Yes, sir. And now, Barry, to make y'all happy, make you clap and hoop a little bit for you without really even hoop. That is the weakness of Hillary Clinton, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you know, Pastor, and what we're simply talking about tonight, you know, if the shoe fit, wear it. So it's not beat up on one. Right. We're talking all.
I know, right. When they left the White House, they were broke because they bought through Ken Starr and all this stuff. They were dogging them out, doing them bad, all the legal defense. When they got out, they were broke. When they found a way to make the money, because now that you've been president of the United States, they pay you so many $1,000 to speak. They found out that, you know, you could make money. They went all the way to the other side. And that's what Bernie Sanders used on her about what they paid her to speak to Wall Street. I don't think she said anything that's damning to support Wall Street, but the fact that she got paid on that kind of level, because she went from just being poor, just like when somebody's poor, and then all of a sudden they can now generate income. They don't know when to stop because the level of money becomes the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. And so that's her weakness in the fact that people say, can she really associate without pain, what we're going through, if she's got rid, now she will say that she don't believe in having free college because then she made Chelsea the free college. But that's just, you just can't say that in a capsule, meaning what's the word I'm looking for? In an isolated situation. You have to be able to say, listen, I was there, I was broke, and now I did go and make it, but I was greedy in making it, and maybe I need to be able to say to you that, listen, no, I'm not like one of you. I was able to become more lucky than you or more blessed than you or whatever because I was able to take my skills or everything, my experience, and make money off of it and be honest about it. And she's not being honest about that. And that's why people don't trust her. I really do believe she'll do better than Trump would do, but she won't do better than President Barack Obama. Because why? He was a community organizer. He was out there doing stuff for free. He was just trying to help people without making any money. So that's why we look at her that way. But that's she dug it hole for herself. When they came out broke, we decided to go all the way to the other side. There ought to be, the Bible says, do everything in moderation. If I would ever become famous, that's not what I want to be, but I'm just saying, if I ever had the opportunity to make a whole lot of money, why make all that money and become something I'm not? If I have an opportunity to generate that kind of money, then take that money and give to other folks. If I can make $5 million, why not give away 2.5 million of it? You see what I'm saying? Why not give away 3 million of it and keep 2 million of it? See, that's what we don't understand. That's what morality is. We're greedy and we're selfish and don't know when to stop. Mm-hmm. That's what I just threw that in.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Deb, come on in.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Ben. I just wanted to throw a thought out there for folks. As far as morality and compassion and things like that, when my son passed away, I wound up going to get help, and I had a group that I was involved with. And one thing that I learned in that, I mean, they all thought that I had suffered the most horrific thing because I was the one that had a son died. But I also saw a kid in there who lost a friend to suicide over drugs. I saw a lady that was still dealing with childhood sexual abuse. I saw a gentleman that was dealing with, he had Alzheimer's, and his wife was in the group trying to help deal with that. And the one thing that I learned in that group, and probably one of the most important lessons, and maybe the reason that my son was taken was for me to learn this lesson, is that pain is pain. It feels the same for everybody. It doesn't matter what's happened. It all hurts. It hurts the same. And I think if people understand that more and they look into their own pain and understand that it's not necessarily levels, it's what it is, and they understand that a little bit better, I think that would help them be more compassionate and understand people outside of their circles. Mm-hmm. Just a thought, wanted to throw it out there.
Mm-hmm. Aaron Hopkins.
Yes, sir. Deb, I'm glad you threw that out there, and I want to kind of summarize my whole thought process by saying this, and I'm glad, Pastor Riggins, that you're on here, because one of my bigger concerns is, and this is not directed at you personally, but if, in fact, it's accepted and understood that most of the standard bearers, especially in what we call Christianity or in religion, are supposed to be those men and women, in many cases, who are the religious leaders or the religious standard bearers. At the point where the morality question has to pass through them, and even in the face of a corrupt or wrong politician and even president, from my standpoint and my judgment, that person has the right and should call to account whoever that person is. Because at some point, somewhere down the line, political leaders and political leadership overtook the leadership of the person who was supposed to stand for morality. Mm-hmm. That's the problem and the question. It was depressed me the most when Edwin Robinson made the statement, because Pastor Riggins, I believe it was on your show, Baron and I were listening, there was a gentleman on there when asked a question about president, and a president who was not necessarily considered to be moral. The answer, to me, it bothers me. I'm going to be very honest with you. Because here you are, if you're a moral standard bearer, or a person who's supposed to represent God and right, at the same moment you can say that you don't mind voting for somebody who may not be morally strong because that's not their job. Okay, but if you're the leader of the free world, how then are you not supposed to be held to a moral accountability? See, that I think at some point we have to start asking these kind of hard questions, especially for somebody that's going to ask for our vote, if we know we're suffering from a moral decay in this country. Pastor Reed, I need some clarification on that.
I'm so glad you asked me, brother. And I remember the show you're talking about. And the reason why I was going toe-to-toe with that gentleman is because he used to fellowship with me a few years back. And one of the reasons why he's not fellowshipping with me is because the love of money is the root of all evil. Every plan that he wanted to deal with, and he was a school teacher, and eventually he was fighting against racism in the school district, but every plan that he had to try to do something different surrounded around what you call a pyramid. So you want somebody to buy into something and buy this and buy that, and somebody sell this, and you have 4 people underneath you and do this and the other, and I was not going for that. And so he wanted to bring that into some churches around, and the churches was not going for it. And so when he looked at Trump, he keeps saying Trump is a great businessman, and so Trump made all his money. He wants to attach his dreams to that. The love of money is and that's a pastor doing that, you see. The love of money is the root of all evil. That's what I was making an example of. Not him, but guys like him. So that's why he and I go toe-to-toe about this, because the fact that he's trying to convince me that in spite of what Trump is doing, he'll make America, be able to rise up business-wise, and money can come in the community and let God deal with the morality. No. We are his hands. We are his feet. We're his eyes. We're his representatives. You're right. The prophet must speak to the king. All through the Old Testament, if the prophet was the king, said to the king, you're wrong, then he straightened him out. And when the prophet spoke to the king had to line up or with God, or God was going to do something different about that. Whether it was King David, whether it was Elisha dealing with some of the kings, Elijah dealing with Ahab and Jezebel, even sometimes the king came to Elisha and said, I want to win over my enemies. The king says, okay, the prophet said, I can't get out the bed, but let me hold a bow now with you. Shoot down. King shot 3 arrows. He said, man, you undershot yourself. Should have shot 7 or 8 times. Because you just wanted to survive. You need to learn how to thrive. See, the prophet got to speak to the king. You're going to turn into a sermon on there.
Go ahead, Pastor. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to say to the fact morality begins with God speaking first. And it might be a different perspective. Some people might say, well, I don't believe in God, all that stuff. But as human beings, if we're creating this image, his likeness, we can't legislate morality. You can't legislate morality. Morality starts in your heart. Get created me a clean heart. Renew a right spirit in me. We can't legislate it. We can't make folks do right. But we got to live right for them and show them what's right and stand up for what's right. Whether it's George Zimmerman selling a gun in which he killed somebody, that's immoral. Come on. Whether it's Donald Trump Butler talking about hanging President Obama from the White House, it's immoral. Whether it's the fight in the war to take all out of that, it's immoral. But when killing somebody in the street because you pull him over for a traffic stop and he's scared of you and you shoot him in the back like a deer, that's immoral. Anyway, so that's I digress.
Aaron Hopkins.
I want to be in your church Sunday, Pastor.
Aaron Hopkins. Hop. We're looking at about 3 or 4 minutes. I'm gonna let you close it out.
Pastor Riggins, I'm going to tell you, see, this is what's needed, not just inside the church house, because I think what has happened, what I know has happened, for the most part, people are comfortable where they are, and their morality only goes as far as they are comfortable. And so, with many pastors, and I'm glad you shed some light on the subject in terms of what a person's agenda is. That's an unfortunate instance, but the point that I'm making is, too often we want to sit back and have people come into our sphere of influence rather than us go out and make a change to people who a lot of times aren't even conscious of the fact of what their moral situation is. And it's not, again, this is not a forcible instance where we're trying to make somebody do right, but it's hard as heck to point out the wrong in somebody else when all around us wrong is going on, but we're not addressing or speaking to that. So, that's why this was such a pressing issue, and it's still pressing me. I'm not saying everybody has shed some light and has brought some, I would say, some relief, not just to me, but I think my only goal was to get us to think and look again at the whole question of morality, because Deb said something, and I agree with it. For this particular election to be so very important, it could not be as important if morality wasn't at the forefront. So there's things that Hillary Clinton saying now 10 years ago would have had much different effect. A lot of the people who were saying they wouldn't vote or not going to vote for Hillary Clinton, I think 10 years ago might have been some of those who would have voted for Hillary Clinton. So there's been time to peel back some of the things that were unknown or hidden about, and not just Hillary Clinton. Because Barron is right. This is not a beat up on Hillary Clinton platform, but we're pointing out things that makes it hard for us to give away our right to somebody or right to vote for somebody who doesn't really show their intentions for the whole of humanity is good. So bottom line is we have to be more conscious from our own personal moral positions before we can impose it on somebody else.
And I agree with Aaron Hopkins. I know it's time to go, Barry. The only thing I would say is, I'm not telling anybody who to vote for. Trump as president is a dangerous world to live in. If Hillary Clinton, if we're going to judge a tree by its fruit, that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to judge the people. I'm judging tree by its fruit. If Hillary Clinton's fruit is bad, Donald Trump's fruit is 100 times worse. So I'm going to have to choose the lesser of two evils. That's the only choice I have. I'm not going to move to Jamaica. I'm not going to move to Bahamas. I'm not going to move to Mexico. I'm not going to move to England. I got to live in the United States.
Yes, sir. AL.
I'm going to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got to do a Glassology 101. Please let me know what your schedule is next Monday and Thursday. We're gonna put this thing together because this has to go deeper. Aaron Hopkins, thanks for this wonderful topic. Nikki, Dave, Deb, appreciate you joining in, and all those listeners that are out there tonight. Morality in America, are we willing to change? We also talked about the presidential primary and the general election. Dave Lamont, I want you to come up with this other topic for Monday night. And Thursday night, Pastor, you, myself, Aaron, and all the rest of it, we're going to come up with something else, some type of special event or whatever. So let's put together, think about it over the weekend, and Monday we'll get together. Dave Lamont, it's on you Monday night. So I hope you're out there listening. Thanks for listening to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass on Thursday night, May the 12th, 2016. You can check us out in the archives by going to www.thesmokingglasshour.com. Also, Dave Lamont, I forgot to tell you that we have access to putting your blab up on the website so you can draw more listeners out there. Aaron, Pastor Riggins, we're trying to go back 24 hours live. I got to get with you guys. We got to come up with some kind of format. We're talking about, once again, 24-hour radio with Pastor Riggins. I've already kind of talked to you, Aaron, kind of mentioned it to you. I need to get with Nikki and Deb and along with Dave so I can let them in on what's going on. We're going to arrange a conference call at some point, on free conference call, so we all can get this information and see which way we want to go. Because once again, 2016, we're on the move. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.